It was supposed to be just another regular season game. But what happened on that field in the span of a few seconds has now shaken the entire baseball world to its core, and the consequences may never be fully undone. Shohei Ohtani was simply doing what he always does. He was locked in, focused, present in every moment of the game. And then, without warning, everything stopped. Players froze. The crowd fell silent. And the cameras captured something that nobody in the stadium, or watching at home, could believe they were seeing. Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox had just done something that will define his career forever. And not in the way any player ever dreams of. The game between the Boston Red Sox and the Los Angeles Dodgers had been tense from the very first inning. According to multiple sources inside the stadium, there had already been a charged atmosphere building throughout the early innings. The rivalry between these two franchises has always carried weight, but on this particular evening, something felt different. Players on both benches had been watching each other carefully. Words had been exchanged. The energy was already sitting on a razor's edge. But nobody, not the coaches, not the umpires, not the broadcasters, anticipated what was about to happen. In the sixth inning, with the Dodgers trailing by 1 run, Shohei Ohtani stepped into a play near the baseline. What followed has been described by eyewitnesses as one of the most shocking moments in recent MLB history. Jarren Duran, moving at full speed, made contact with Ohtani in a manner that immediately drew gasps from every corner of the ballpark. It was not a clean baseball play. It was not an accident born of competitive instinct. According to multiple sources present at the scene, what Duran did was deliberate, reckless, and completely outside the boundaries of the game. Ohtani went down. And for a moment, the entire stadium held its breath. The medical staff rushed onto the field within seconds. According to those present, the atmosphere in the Dodgers dugout shifted from competitive focus to raw concern in an instant. Players who had been standing at the railing watching the play immediately turned silent. Several Dodgers veterans were seen with their heads down, hands clasped together. The dugout, which had been filled with noise and energy just moments before, was now enveloped in complete silence. Ohtani remained on the ground for what felt like an eternity. Every second that passed deepened the tension. And when he finally began to move, slowly, carefully, with the assistance of the training staff, the relief in the stadium was palpable, but it did not erase what everyone had just witnessed. Duran, meanwhile, stood a short distance away. According to multiple sources, his expression in those moments was difficult to read. There were no immediate gestures of apology. No movement toward Ohtani. Just stillness, as the gravity of what had just occurred began to settle over the entire field. The reaction from the Dodgers dugout was immediate and unambiguous. According to multiple inside sources, several Dodgers players expressed their outrage directly, and the conversation between both benches became heated within minutes of the incident. Manager Dave Roberts was seen speaking intensely with umpires, and according to those familiar with the situation, Roberts made clear that what had happened was unacceptable at any level of professional baseball. The umpires huddled. Replays were reviewed. And within a short period of time, Jarren Duran was ejected from the game. But for the Dodgers, the ejection was not enough. Not even close. According to multiple sources inside the organization, the Dodgers immediately began the process of filing a formal complaint with the MLB Commissioner's office. The language used in those internal discussions was, by all accounts, extremely serious. This was not a team filing paperwork as a formality. This was an organization that felt one of the most important players in the history of the sport had been deliberately targeted, and they wanted consequences that matched the severity of what had occurred. MLB moved faster than anyone expected. According to multiple sources familiar with the league's decision-making process, the commissioner's office reviewed the footage within hours of the incident. What they saw left very little room for interpretation. The review was thorough, the evidence was clear, and the conclusion reached by MLB officials was one that will now follow Jarren Duran for the rest of his life. Jarren Duran has been suspended from Major League Baseball indefinitely, a ruling that multiple sources describe as the functional equivalent of a lifetime ban given the circumstances surrounding the incident. The announcement came down like a hammer. According to those present when the news reached both clubhouses, the reaction was one of stunned silence on the Red Sox side and grim, unsurprised acknowledgement on the Dodgers side. Not a single person in the Red Sox locker room uttered a word for several seconds after the decision was read aloud. The air in the room had completely changed. Players sat still. Coaches stood with their arms folded. And the weight of what had just happened, the full, irreversible weight of it, pressed down on everyone in that space. The Red Sox organization released a brief statement expressing that they supported the league's authority to act in situations of this nature. But according to multiple sources within the franchise, the private reaction was far more complicated. Several Red Sox veterans expressed disappointment, not just in the suspension itself, but in how the situation had been allowed to reach this point. There were voices within the locker room questioning the judgment that led to the play, questioning the mindset, questioning whether the competitive fire had crossed a line that no player should ever cross. One source familiar with the internal conversations described the atmosphere in the Red Sox clubhouse as the heaviest it had been all season. Not because of a loss. Not because of an injury to one of their own. But because of the awareness that a teammate had done something that fundamentally could not be undone. For Shohei Ohtani, the situation carries a significance that extends far beyond a single game or even a single season. Ohtani is not just a player. He is, by any reasonable measure, the most uniquely gifted baseball player of his generation, perhaps of any generation. What he does on a baseball field is watched by fans across the entire world. His presence in the sport has expanded the reach of baseball into markets and communities that the league has spent decades trying to connect with. He represents something that goes beyond statistics, beyond wins and losses, beyond any individual franchise. To see him on the ground, to watch the training staff rush toward him in front of a packed stadium and a global television audience, sent a message that reverberated far beyond the game itself. According to multiple sources, the response from Ohtani's camp following the incident was measured but firm. There was no dramatic public statement. There was no call for additional punishment beyond what the league would decide. But those familiar with the situation made clear that the incident was taken with the utmost seriousness, and that the people surrounding Ohtani were watching closely to ensure that the league's response reflected the gravity of what had occurred. Within hours of the suspension announcement, the reaction across MLB, from players, coaches, analysts, and fans, was swift and largely unified. Several current MLB players took to social media to express their view. Just the quiet acknowledgement that the league had seen what they had seen, had judged it the way the Dodgers believed it should be judged, and had acted accordingly. Manager Dave Roberts, according to those familiar with his reaction, expressed gratitude that Ohtani had not suffered more serious physical consequences. But Roberts also made clear, in conversations with his coaching staff and players, that what had happened served as a reminder of something every player in that room already knew, that the game demands respect. Not just for the rules. Not just for the competition. But for the people who show up every day and give everything they have to it. Shohei Ohtani is one of those people. And on this night, that had to be enough. The story of Jarren Duran and Shohei Ohtani will now be written into the history of this sport. Not as a chapter anyone wanted. Not as a moment anyone celebrates. But as a line in the record of what baseball is willing to tolerate, and what it is not. The game moves forward. It always does. But some moments leave marks that the box score can never fully capture. And this is one of them.